What's up, everyone? It's going to go over a little bit more about reversing out of pain depending on what your limitations are. And I like to call them honest, like pits where people get stuck in. So this comes from ultimately your thinking and your previous way of doing things that you don't want to let go of. So if you're somebody that has either been pretty dormant and is starting to have this posture that is very rolled forward, that is going to carry all of your issues. Rolled forward pelvis, feet turn out, and all of these things are compensations for being weak in certain areas. So the issue that many people have are, you kind of have the gym camp, and then you have people that train at home, people that do boot camps, etc. Or people kind of get in the point of where they just go to PT for about 6 weeks and get to a certain level, but not good enough to train again or run or sprint. And then they go back to where they were. So they're just kind of in a cycle, so to speak. So how do you actually break out of that? So instead of doing what everyone typically does, so having the limitations and then taking those limitations into bodybuilding or powerlifting style workouts, what that does is it just puts more problems on a weak foundation. So if you're building a house on a weak foundation, so to speak, or it's like you're upgrading the body of the car, but not what's under the hood or the things that actually make it run well. So instead of doing that, we're going to directly attack our problems. So the reason you can't feel your glutes working, your lower back is weak, your hip flexors are weak, is because you don't train them. So by getting away from the bodybuilding style workouts and just attacking what is actually limiting you, you're going to have a lot better progress. So if you're someone who can't go through the regular workouts that you do without having pain, you should stop for a while. You know, this was something that I struggled with because I had that athletic mentality of never missing days, never taking rest. But that is actually what has contributed to getting you here in the first place. And what we're ultimately trying to prevent are surgeries down the line, cortisone shots, being immobile, not being able to do the activities that you want to do. And a lot of people, when they get older, they just want to be able to move well enough to play with their kids. And I've seen this with a lot of clients, a lot of older people in general. The first thing that really sets off the downward spiral is tripping or falling down the stairs. When your body gets put in movements that it cannot support itself and it's weak, all it really takes is one time, and then you can end up with like a hip replacement or something like that. So that is ultimately what we're trying to prevent against. The better you can do the things like twist, overhead mobility, jump, all of these athletic movements that people stop doing once they basically get out of school, that has negative consequences. Once you start to lose the ability to do things, it starts to escalate a lot quicker. So it's better off that you just maintain what you have from when you were a kid. Otherwise, you're going to have to kind of go back a couple steps so you can ultimately repair the foundation that you weren't addressing, and then you can move forward. So the other thing that really holds people back is the constant adherence to sets and reps. And this comes from bodybuilding and powerlifting as well. So, you know, a lot of people get so stuck into the program or the cookie cutter programs that they're not even aware of what they need. They have lost all agency. So what I mean by that is, if my shoulders are killing me and on my powerlifting program it says you're going to do 4 sets of heavy doubles on bench press, is that going to be a good idea if I'm already suffering with shoulder shit as well as immobility? Absolutely not. So instead of constantly adhering to that program, I am just going to give my body what it actually needs. So my scapula needs some strength, needs mobility, my overhead mobility. These are ultimately the things that are going to fix your shoulder pain, and ultimately working until you can get a back bend. So that is a process. But if you can back bend, if you can contract all of your back muscles in an arched position, that is the exact opposite of the posture that we're always trying to correct. So this is from negligence right here, and then you end up in the walker position, and the back bend is the complete opposite of this position. So you go from here, everything that goes dormant is now being worked, but most people are going to have to progress to that because most people aren't even going to be able to feel their shoulders working properly in a handstand hold. So this is why you start with the plank, then you move to the handstand hold, and then ultimately the back bend. Each one getting more stronger than the other. So all of these body weight movements, if you're unable to do them, you're not going to be able to contract your muscles correctly when you go to do bodybuilding stuff anyway. So this is the 80%. This is the foundation. Everything that comes after that is cosmetic. So me, I still like to do some bodybuilding type of stuff. I love to do Smith machine, other machines, just to try to get a good muscle contraction. I'm not an athlete anymore, so I'm not getting paid at all to just move arbitrary amounts of weight. So I don't see any point in that. Not anymore, at least. If you're getting paid for it or you're in the sport, that's one thing. If you're a regular guy or girl, there's really not that much benefit at all. If you're doing cosmetic, you're better off just doing the machines and really focusing on the muscle. And if you're trying to move better, you also don't really need to do the free weights. So the free weights will be if you enjoy doing them, but as far as application and things that actually work, completely unnecessary. So people always focus on the sets and the reps instead of just doing enough. Like I have multiple clients that start like this and they eventually get the hint, right? So I'll say it might be a machine or weight we haven't really done before. And in my head, I'll say 12 because I'm pretty good at knowing what they would be able to do from the weight just because I've been doing it for so long. But they'll get to 12 and they're not really at that struggling point that we're looking for or the intensity that they're looking for. And then they'll stop. Why? Because it just said 12 reps, right? The point of the workout isn't to hit the reps. It is to do enough work to create a stimulus. So if you're doing a plank for a minute and you're unable to feel the right muscles working and you just stop, it's not really going to be beneficial for you. People just, it's this mindless rep that people just get from bodybuilding. But working your mobility is completely opposite. Working your mobility takes patience. You have to hold these positions. You have to actually connect your mind to the muscle that you're trying to work. And for when muscles go dormant, especially in the hips, the ankles, and the low back, doing these slow, controlled movements over and over, not mindless, that is going to get blood flow to the area that is not have it right now. That's why you can't contract it in the first place. So just being a mindless robot, doing weights and pushing weights is not going to get you to move better. It's not going to help your mobility in any way. Increasing your mobility and your strength in that area is a way different process. So that is why things like yoga is great for that, because it's going to put you in a position that you're weak in, and then you're going to hold it and move your breath around your body. So this slowly starts to engage your nervous system in a way that it is not used to. It's like a sprinter who has to go run 4 miles now. He's going to probably burn out after the first mile. So same thing, you take a marathon runner who never sprints and you make them sprint. They're gonna be out of their element. So it's very important for the average person to be able to blend the two. So this is what you're constantly trying to do. If you end up just a bodybuilder guy, you're gonna end up stiff as a board, and that stiff board is gonna break when you go try to be athletic or run, jump, whatever the deal is. And then you have the person who is flexible, but they don't have the strength and dexterity, then they're also gonna get hurt over here. So you have to blend the two. Otherwise, it's basically just a matter of time before something else happens. So people like to get in a camp or another because everything is so polarized, but it's always about blending it. And if you're you know, if you follow fighting at all, this is a great metaphor for it. So when fighting used to start, it was like everyone was in a different camp. You had your karate guys, you had your wrestling guys, you had your taekwondo. Everyone had one art, and they were fighting to see which one is the best. So this is kind of like in the health industry, you have the bodybuilding people, and you have the powerlifting people, and you have the biohacking people. You have all these different groups, right? They're constantly trying to say, I'm the best, I'm the best. This is the only way to go. And it's so untrue, right? So now when you look at fighting, it's no longer one art versus another art. It's who can blend them all the best. So it's more like the Bruce Lee quote, like be like water. And what that essentially means in this context is you need to know what to do for your what your body needs when it needs it. And the only way to do this is to be able to listen to yourself, listen to your body, and know where your own limitations are instead of just mindlessly following a program. So these are the mindset switches that you slowly need to make, because if you're just going off of time and reps, if your hips are really sore, hold or do as many reps as it takes for that muscle to get fatigued and for you to get a burn in there. That burn, or even cramping sometimes if you really haven't contracted that muscle much, that is what you're looking for. So don't stop before you get that. Otherwise, you're essentially wasting your time. But if you've been doing mindless reps with heavy weights, switch it up. Start to do body weight holds for long periods of time. Just do the opposite. You're going to start to level out a little bit. And as far as the mechanics go, what positions you should be doing, we'll get into all those things. This is kind of more about the philosophy of the why you need to do it, instead of just saying the 3 best things for this or the 3 hip things for this. It's like, if you don't know why things are going wrong and where you're ultimately going, you're just going to be collecting tips, tricks, techniques forever, and that's not what we want. So with all that being said, that is it.